This is Fisherman I Am for the graphic blog, and this time the tutorial will talk about vectors and exactly which programs use it and how exactly do they utilize this option of vectors. Well, two of the most significant programs that use vector work are Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator, which are this and this. And just a quick preview before we start, this is a small work I've done with the Adobe Illustrator, and basically, as you can see, it's just filled with a lot of shapes and lines of all kinds. You can even see here how many of them. Quite a lot. Basically, a vector, different from a pixel, is defined by a few points, and then everything inside that area, which is defined by the few points, here I'll give an example, is then covered with a color. Unlike pixels, which out of the hundreds of thousands of pixels you have on a document, you just choose a few of them and give them a specific color. Vector, you choose a few points, and then you have an area in the middle which is later either covered with a color or a pattern or stroked along the edges of it. Now basically what this means, if I take here in Photoshop, the main tool you use to vector is the pen tool. And the pen tool has the option to create vector paths and vector shapes. Well, I'll start with vector shapes. Basically, vector shapes do exactly that. You define, let's say, 4 points, create some kind of shape, and then these 4 points, which I can move simultaneously using the free transform tool, they maintain their relative position, and thus creating a shape which doesn't lose of its quality when resized. As you can see, if we'll zoom in here a bit, I'm currently at 300% zoom, as you can see, and even in this state you can clearly see a nice line with accurate anti-aliasing. Now if we zoom out, and I'll just grab this and resize it, that's probably a few hundred times, a few tens of times more. I can still zoom in 300 times, and as you can still see, it's still sharp at the edge as it was in the original. And that's basically because what Photoshop does, or Illustrator, they take the geometry which you presented using these points, and then they use calculations to see which pixels should be colored, and it does this each time you present a new image. Now basically a few ways to use in Photoshop to make smoother shapes. You now think you can only use it to create polygons, but you actually have an option to create a tail. So let's say I continue the line, and then what I do is just drag, still haven't unclicked the mouse, I just keep dragging the edge, and what I create is a tail which will be tangent to that line at that checkpoint. So here this line is tangent to it, and when I create a new checkpoint, the line will stay the same here. Now you can't see the color, but I'll change the color here. You can clearly see it here. So basically what this allows you to do is create all kinds of shapes. Now using all the tools, you can quickly create these in all different shapes and sizes. And basically this is probably one of the most powerful tools that Photoshop has to offer. An easier way to use these is actually using paths, because it's less complicated. Basically it's the same concept, only you can fill it on a new layer. so you can blend it with the current image. So I create a new layer here, and just after creating the path and closing it, I just right-clicked and fill path, and I can fill it with foreground, background color, or even a pattern, choosing this pattern for instance, and there, I filled it with a pattern. But what I do when I make this a path rather than a whole vector is that I only define to that moment the geometry, and once I fill it, it loses all its vector properties. So if I'll resize it now, like any other image, it will lose of its quality. Basically, vectoring is really useful for vectoring items you have, let's say silhouettes or shadows. It's really useful to use it in all kinds of artworks. But if you are looking for real big items or print items, you should use vectors because you can resize them to, let's say, 300 dpi and print them, and it will still have high quality. So for instance, this is, as you can see, it's, let's say, this size, and I've done it in Illustrator because absolutely if you're looking for good vectoring work and high level proficiency in this theme, you must use Illustrator. If you have the Photoshop background, it should take you a little time to get used to it because the idea is different. There isn't just a pen tool, there isn't just a brush. Whatever you do, it's, here I'll give an example, whatever you do, it's a vector. So basically I created here a new canvas, and whatever I do, it just gives me the vector, and on that vector I can do all kinds of stuff. Let's say add a brush to it. So here I chose this brush, charcoal, and as you can see, it gave me this charcoal along the path that I created, and I can easily just move this path or copy it or add to it, and basically it edits the image automatically without me needing to do anything about it. So that's why Illustrator is so much better, and you can add all kinds of stuff like this for instance, which I don't know what it's used for, but there you have it. Basically, once you get the hang of this, you'll understand that vectoring is so much better, and it takes some time, of course, as I said, but the overall profit you get from making it is that whatever you do, you can just print it at any size. And once you start printing your artwork, which not a lot of people do in our forums, which is sad because printing artwork is great. I print a lot of my stuff. As you can see, you can resize it to any size you want, and it will still look great. And don't think vectors should be only with vectors. One of my best works is actually a blend of both vector and images, which I took, and it's called, and it's this image right here. Basically, as you can see, it's the vector I showed you earlier here, and I incorporated into Photoshop to create a whole new work out of it. So give it a try, either in Photoshop and Illustrator, or even by hand. Vectoring is great work. Good luck.